أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم استغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على خير خلقه وخاتم الأنبياء والمرسلين سيد الأولين والآخرين شفيع المذنبين رحمة للعالمين محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. Assalamu alaikum, my dear brothers, sisters and guests. I want to actually touch upon the remarks that have been said, because the lecture series in fact touches upon what Muslims can do today in the spirit of Imam Hussain alayhi salam. And we have been concluding that the very motivation of Al-Hussain ibn Ali alayhi salam was the teachings of the Quran, which was corrupted by Yazid ibn Muawiyah. And in that time, that society, we find two opposites. We find Yazid, who both in Shia and Sunni sources is regarded as a zalim and a fasiq. And we find Hussain ibn Ali alayhi salam, the man of Allah, the man of piety, the man of morality, the man of justice, as Khizr Khan echoed in his beautiful speech. But the question is, in order for us to affect change in any society, there is one important principle that Islam emphasizes, and that is ilm, or the study or the search for knowledge, ilm. In the last few lectures, I've been trying to extract the tools or principles of the Quran that Muslims can use. We have discussed niyyah from the Quran. We have discussed iman, faith. We have discussed the tafsir of ihdina sirat al-mustaqim. And the point of all of this is to show you one thing, which is every step of the way, from Medina and Makkah to Karbala, Imam Hussain alayhi salam was educating people as to why he was making a stand against Yazid ibn Muawiyah through verses of the Quran. If you examine any Shia or Sunni source, Maqtal al-Hussain, Kitab al-Irshad, Tariq al-Tabari, several others, you will find he cites verses of the Quran to justify his actions. People ask him, Ya Aba Abdullah, why don't you just stay in your home? Why don't you be comfortable? Why do you have to cause a fuss? Why do you have to make a stand against Yazid? And he says, don't you know the verses of the Quran where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commands us to adl and qist, justice and fairness? Do you not know that Allah is our guardian, not a corrupt leader? In fact, early on he told Muhammad ibn Hanafiya that I am not rising or standing, or rather refusing to give allegiance to Yazid because I'm interested in a political position, because I want to create discord in the community. He said, because I want to rectify the affairs of the ummah of my grandfather, Rasulullah, and my father, Ali ibn Abi Talib. For both of them stood for Amr bil Ma'aruf, enjoining that which is known or good, and Nahi Munkar, prohibiting that which is reprehensible or evil. That is the most, in simplest form, the message of Hussain alayhi salam, and why today Muslims still remember it. But there is an issue, which is, and I pose this in lecture 1, have we made Hussain ibn Ali alayhi salam, the grandson of the Prophet, a sectarian figure? That means, for Shia he is Hussain, and for our dear Sunni brothers and sisters he is still Hussain, but maybe in another way. Because we do not generally find in Shia masajid, Shias and Sunnis together. Of course, we all respect the family of the Prophet, but my point is something else. to what extent are we unified to the figure of Hussein? I don't think we are, if you agree with me. Maybe disagree with me. I don't believe we are unified to the figure of Hussein ibn Ali salam. That means if today Hussein meant something to every single Muslim in the world, can you imagine how quickly we would stand up for issues of justice? How quickly? We would not hesitate. Not only that, we would be able to create systems of change. Now, if you say systems of change, what I'm trying to say is we would produce models of knowledge that would help the society. In the time after the Prophet, and especially the time of Imam al-Islam, you find the production of Islamic sciences. In fact, the majority of Islamic sciences, Lughat al-Arabiya, Irfan, Tafsir, and many others go back to Imam Ali alayhi salam and originally go back to Rasulullah. But even beyond that period, you find from 10th to 13th centuries, Ibn Sina, you find Khaja Nasruddin Tusi, later on 17th, 18th century, you find Mullah Sadra, you find historians from our Sunni brothers and sisters, you find as well from the Shia brothers and sisters. So you have a production of knowledge. And even if you were to examine the relation between science and Islam, you don't even have to do much research. You can even go into Wikipedia. It's reliable, or maybe not as reliable as it is, but even if you were to look on there, you would see certain types of inventions associated with Muslim scholars, like Ibn Haytham relating to optics and relating to the study of the eye. Khaji Nasruddin Tusi made advances in astronomy well before Copernicus. My question today is, do Muslims occupy that position of advancing knowledge? Who says yes? Who says no? Anybody say yes? Yes. Are we the advances of knowledge?
Not as a community.
Not as a community. Maybe I can still challenge that. I don't believe necessarily we are even producing the individuals that would change the paradigms that we live in. That means, let's just take example of Islam. Some work I did several years ago where I consulted, you had a counseling conference or something? You generally have counseling and those sorts of conferences, yes? And I was looking throughout Muslim literature actually to see within our spiritual tradition, have we ever produced a model of spiritual and existential well-being for human beings, not Muslims, human beings? That means if you look at Quran, look at Hadith, doesn't matter Shia or Sunni, can we produce anything that is accessible for a normal layman who is going through depression, who wants to learn about his dignity, who wants to stop crime, who wants to stop terrorism, wants to stop violence? Do you think anybody can come to Islam and find that? Do we have a model for that? In the last 10 or 20 years, if you've gone to bookshops, you've gone to libraries, you'll find a section there, often called, in various terms, self-help, New Age philosophy, or New Age spirituality. And you'll find a number of books which talk about spiritual concepts. They're not connected to God, they're not connected to religion. If you read those books, you find all of these things, to be very honest with you, are in the tradition of Islam, and specifically in Irfan, in spirituality. And as I gave the example in the khutbah today, even last week, you look at the figure of Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. Ali was a figure in the society that would solve practical problems. Yes, he did think about theory and grammar and tafsir and all of these things, to the extent that even the Umar ibn Khattab and many other caliphs within Islamic history would actually ask Ali for advice. That was there. But Imam Ali alayhi salam produced practical models, or through his behavior and conduct actually affected people's lives. So when he was struck in Masjid al-Kufa by Ibn Muljim, people were crying. And they were crying not because they were saying, we have lost a scholar, we have lost somebody to lead the prayer, we have lost an imam. No. They said, who or which father is going to look after our orphans and widows. That was the statement given by the people in Masjid al-Kufa. Ali was accessible to every Muslim and human beings. We even have reports that he helped Christian orphans and widows. Although we don't really do a lot of research in this matter. So it means if Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam was focused on his society and affecting change, clearly he understood the value of knowledge, practical knowledge and theoretical knowledge. Salawat, please. If you look at ilm or knowledge in the Islamic tradition, ilm or knowledge was literally born in the first breath of revelation. The early verses of Surah Al-Alaq, which in near unanimous agreement by Shia and Sunni scholars are the first verses of the Quran. We say, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. اقرأ باسم ربك الذي خلق خلق الإنسان من علق اقرأ وربك الأكرم الذي علم بالقلم علم الإنسان ما لم يعلم. Let us just take those verses. Allah says, read in the name of your Lord who has created. He created man from a clot, or alaq can also be translated as a clinging mass. Alaqa, that verb actually means something that clings onto something. Read, and your Lord is most generous, who has taught by the pen, and he has taught man that which he knew not. So in fact, the first teacher of Islam, or really the first teacher of humanity, the first teacher of the Prophet, was none other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Rasulullah was his student. It means that the first obligation that you and I have is not to pray, is not to fast, is not to even attend masjid actually. Although these are of course obligatory and important things. The first duty we have is to gain knowledge. Iqra, the first fi'l, the first verb, or amr I should say, command, is to read. And read in the name of Allah, and to remember His name, and to remove ourselves out of ignorance, so that we can affect change. The tafsir of this verse tells us one very important thing, which is, you and I will always be needy. We are always going to be that alaq, that clot, that clinging mass that requires Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's knowledge and help. Even the mention of the word qalam, pen, in the Quran, how many symbols of knowledge do you find? Kitab, meaning book, and al-kitab, meaning the Quran. Nur, light, which is a metaphor for knowledge or illumination. Dhulm, a metaphor for darkness and ignorance. Qalam, ilm. Kitab is mentioned 230 times in the Quran. Ilm is mentioned 27 times. I can go on and give you numbers, but it doesn't matter. Because in the Quran, you open the book, and the book is throwing at us symbols. All of these symbols are there to tell us, read, educate, try to come out of any type of ignorance that we have. But there's something even more than this. In our ahadith, ilm is regarded as an obligation. According to the hadith of the Prophet Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This is from Amalia Tusi, page 488. Rasulullah says, "Talabul ilm farida ala kulli Muslim." That ilm, or the searching of knowledge, is an obligation on every Muslim. That means without distinction between male and female. Females have the equal potential and opportunity to produce change. You take Karbala. Lady Zainab, salamullahi alayha, the daughter of Imam Ali alayhi salam. the daughter of Bibi Fatima, has some of the most wonderful sermons on justice and activism. In the court of Damascus and the court of Yazid, these are some of the most eloquent sermons we have in the Islamic tradition. Lady Zainab tells Yazid, you have no right to poke fun at the teeth of my brother Hussein. And at that point, Hussein's head is on a golden tray. Tell me, in the Islamic tradition, which woman can you pinpoint that has the courage and the guts to stand up while her clothes are torn, while she is in chains, while her back is broken, while she is crying, while her family has been martyred, and she stands up in front of Yazid, the dictator. And she tells him, you have no right to poke at the teeth of my brother Hussein. And then goes on to say, and cites verses of the Quran. O Yazid, do you think that you have won and that you are successful? Don't you know the verse of the Quran where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that Allah gives respite or a period to the oppressors and the dictators of the world. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes everyone to account. In this respect, when we are talking about producing change, when we are talking about increasing our knowledge, even a woman who unfortunately at times within our community gatherings, we have degraded and lowered, let us be honest. How many Muslim women do you see as leaders of communities? How many Muslim women get the chance to give a majlis? A woman should also be sitting here. That is the absolute truth of the matter. And it is the fault of men, by the way, that we do not give that opportunity. But as you know, with my respected women, I'll be in the good books one day, and the next day I'll do something wrong, and then you'll always come at me. But I mean that from my heart, because just like you, I've grown up when I was young in a society, in a community, where generally speaking women didn't give majalis. Where generally speaking women were regarded as, well, they are the third or fourth speech and we will just hear 10 minutes of them, or their role is something else. Tell me, in Karbala we see the opposite. Bibi Fatimatu Zahra's Khutbatul Fadak is the opposite. And just as a matter of information, if you read the ziyarat of Bibi Zainab, those of us who have gone to Syria, inshallah may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us the opportunity for her ziyarat. And even if we have not gone, but we have read her ziyarat, in ziyarat and in history, she is known as Alima. Zainab is known as Alima. Alim is the masculine word or male word for a male scholar, Alim. Alima, at the end with the tarmabuta, or the ta, is known as the female scholar. So Zainab is known as an Alima, just as Bibi Fatima was known as an Alima. Now people often argue, but you know, the sermons of Bibi Zainab and Bibi Fatima, they had to do them. This is the common argument. You know, Imam Sajjad was ill, Imam alayhi salam had died, so they had to give the sermon out of necessity. There are two problems with that argument. Number one is that even if you say that, it still requires courage and intellect for Bibi Zainab to stand up in a court of men. It still requires intellect and courage. And number two, even if you remove the incident of Karbala, you find that in her life history, she still taught others knowledge. And we might argue that if it was, let us say, a more open society, like we are now living in, like in this center, male and females are sitting together, and for example, we can go to university and study together. If it was a society like that, I wonder, would Bibi Zainab have been a professor? Would she have been a teacher to all, regardless of gender and sex? This is a very important question. So the first point, or the second point after the Quran and our Hadith, is that ilm is not restricted to gender. Salawat. In another hadith that we have, we find that during the 6th Imam alayhi salam's time, he said that I wish that I had a whip. He didn't actually have a whip and used it, but he says, I wish that I had a whip, so that when my companions came in front of me, I could whip their head. I could whip their heads so that they would study and gain knowledge. He wishes that when people came in front, they would just strike them so they could just be alert and gain knowledge. Because he was frustrated that people used to be in front of him but didn't really care about gaining knowledge. And in fact, during Imam Ali's time, he faced a similar problem. The Khawarij, the people who left the battle of Siffin and eventually martyred Imam Ali alayhi salam, they were people that memorized the Quran. And they had recited the Quran and they used to pray. But they were not thinking people. They were not people that studied and gained knowledge or challenged their minds. To the extent that if you read Sermon 124 and 125 of Nahjul Balagha, the Khawarij come to Imam Ali alayhi salam and they're accusing him. They're saying, "Oh Ali, why are you arbitrating with Muawiyah? Because the battle of Siffin ended in chaos, with many Muslims live dead." And so eventually Imam Ali says, I will agree to have an arbitration. Arbitration is where a third party decides to create some sort of agreement, like two parties have a problem, a third party says, I will arbitrate for you, I will solve the matter. So Imam Ali agrees to that. But he is killed before the arbitration is decisive. During that process, the Khawarij come to Imam Ali and they say, "Oh Ali, you are disobeying the Quran, because the Quran says that the final judgment rests with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on every matter. That means human beings do not have a right to have a discussion. You just have to take the literal meaning of the Quran and see what Allah says and follow that." What is Imam Ali's response to the Khawarij? So, he says, "Oh Khawarij, what is this Quran that I hold in front of him?" He holds the Quran in front of them. He says, "Oh Khawarij, this Quran is just a book which has got two covers or two flaps. And it requires a human mind to interpret it. Just because we have the Quran doesn't mean we should be content in reciting it or following the literal meaning. The Quran requires my mind and your mind to understand what it is saying to us today." That is the challenge and question posed by Imam Ali alayhi salam over 14 centuries ago, which is still valid today. Because as I established 3-4 majalises ago, that most Muslims do not read the Quran or understand the Quran. A common point is raised here that it's not my responsibility to understand the Quran, it's the alim's responsibility. It's the scholar's responsibility. So I'll pose you a very simple question. If that was the case, why does it say in the Quran, in the Surah Al-Baqarah, that this Quran is a book of guidance for mankind, for human beings? Why does the Quran have so many names? Al-Huda, guidance. Furqan, the criterion. Nur, light. If this Quran is only meant to be for a few scholars living in the tower, living in a madrasa, living in a seminary, reserved for the classroom, what good is this book? There is no difference between the Quran and a textbook then, is there? Because a textbook you study in the classroom and requires a teacher. But this Quran, whether you understand Arabic or not, requires our reflection, requires our love, requires our understanding. If we can start from that perspective, we will be inspired by the Quran and inspired with the search and the gaining of knowledge. Salawat. One might ask actually that what is the greatest virtue in Islam? The greatest virtue, the greatest merit. It is none other than ilm. For Imam al-Islam says in Qurar al-Hikam, he says, رَأْسُ الْفَضَائِلِ الْعِلْمِ غَايَةُ الْفَضَائِلِ الْعِلْمِ, that the head of all merits is knowledge, and the peak of all merits is knowledge. Is knowledge. The peak of all merits is knowledge. In fact, in another hadith that we have, the Prophet says, it is better to sleep with a little knowledge, than having done many rituals that day. Better to sleep with a little knowledge about what we are doing. And this hadith is repeated in various forms by the Prophet, by Imam Ali, by the sixth Imam in Al-Kafi, where they all say that rituals without comprehension are valueless. 3 majalises ago I said, if we were to count how many prayers we have done in our life till our death, what number would we come up with? Of course, a huge number. But in all of those prayers, which is meant to be a personal communication with Allah, what did we understand about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? If Muharram is to be the month, or the day of Ashura is meant to be the day for change, it must start with gaining knowledge about our existence and what change we can bring. If the principle of ilm in Islam is so important that it is indeed an obligation, what examples do we have within our history to show us how our imams took this seriously and what role did they play in the production of knowledge? You all know the hadith that Muhammad Madinatul Ilm wa Aliyun Babuha, that Muhammad is the city of knowledge and Ali is its gate. You all know that hadith, yes? However, what's the background to that hadith? Why? We can understand why the Prophet is the city of knowledge. He's the Prophet, he was the person that received the revelation. Why should Ali be its gate? Why not any other companion? Why not Bilal? Why not Ammar ibn Yasir? Why not Abu Bakr? Why not Umar? It's a very important question. We often say, well, Imam Ali was the cousin of the Prophet. But then Zayd was the adopted son of the Prophet. There were many people around the Prophet that were close to the Prophet. There are 2 important things about the Prophet and Imam Ali's life. One came from the side of the Prophet and one came from the side of Imam Ali. On the side of the Prophet, wherever he went, whatever he did in his household, even to the extent of eating, he used to have Imam Ali next to him. Prophet used to feed Imam Ali Islam. Even I've seen reports where he used to feed morsels of his food by first putting it in his mouth with his saliva so that it goes into Imam Ali's mouth. The way that the Prophet would dress and sit and behave and conduct himself was seen by Imam Ali Islam. The way the Prophet would walk, the way the Prophet would sit with slaves, Imam Ali saw all of that and learned from that. But on the side of Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam, Ali himself used to follow the Prophet asking him questions. Always asking him questions. Ya Rasulullah, what does this verse mean? Ya Rasulullah, why have you said this? Ya Rasulullah, why are you sitting on the ground? Ya Rasulullah, why have you removed your name or title of Rasulullah in the Treaty of Hudaybiyah? In the Treaty of Hudaybiyah, the people of the Quraysh removed the title of Rasul from that treaty. That treaty was there to have some peace between the Muslims and the Quraysh. And the Quraysh says, we don't recognize Rasulullah. He's not a messenger to us. So please put in the treaty Muhammad ibn Abdullah. Muhammad, son of Abdullah, because Abdullah was the Prophet's father. Abdul Muttalib, the Prophet's grandfather. So he says, we only recognize the father's name. Imam Ali got angry. He says, no, you can't do that to the Prophet. You can't remove his title. He started to tell the Prophet, don't allow them to do this. So he was questioning the Prophet. He said, don't allow them to do this. Prophet says, no. Remove my title so that it may cause peace and unity in the community. I remind myself of this example all the time. If pride comes in me, I always remind myself of this example. If Rasulullah could remove the title given to him by Allah for the sake of the community, what pride should we ever have in this life? If somebody demotes us, if somebody degrades us, all for the sake of peace and unity, not for the sake of, no, this is me. But the point here is that Imam Ali questioned. And so Ali was the gate because he took time to question and understand and make a critical judgment. And today, in most communities that I've recited, that Allah has given this small servant to go to, if anybody raises a controversial question in the masjid, all hell will break loose. You cannot question the history of Karbala. You cannot question the alim. You cannot question the opinion that is there in the majlis. This opinion came 100 years ago. There is no principle like that in Islam. Yes, we must question with evidence, not question just because it's my opinion and because I think it's right. We must question and have an argument. But we have the right to question. In the Quran, littered throughout the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أَفَلَا تَعْقِلُونَ أَفَلَا تَفَكُّرُونَ أُولَٰئِكَ الْأُولِي الْأَلْبَابِ. Don't you think? In Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 76, Allah says, don't you think, don't you reason, don't you reflect? Or these are the men or people of understanding. At the end of verses, you find this question coming to us. Are we not people of thinking? And the biggest problem, actually, which all the prophets faced since Adam alayhi salam, was only one problem. And that was the ignorance of the community. When the prophets, like Prophet Nuh, like Prophet Musa alayhi salam, take Prophet Musa alayhi salam, when he went to his community and he told them, believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and when he left to go to Mount Sinai, they started worshipping the calf. They started engaging in those bad habits that were there in their previous generations and communities. And when Prophet Musa said, why are you doing this? They said, because our forefathers used to do it. Because they used to do it. And we are not going to question their practices. It is the principle of Islam to question what came and what was before. Rasulullah told this to his whole community. And you take Ammar ibn Yasir. Ammar ibn Yasir's family, including himself, were worshipping idols. He was a great companion of the Prophet. How did he become a great companion? We never look at the process. He became a great companion because Rasulullah asked him the question, why are you worshipping these idols? He then told his parents. His parents were reluctant to accept, but then accepted. And they broke the idols in their household. We think that there are no idols today. What happens if I am an idol to myself? What happens if the television, the Facebook, the WhatsApp is an idol to myself? What happens if my fashion is an idol to myself? What happens if my money is an idol to myself? All of these idols are still present today. And therefore, to answer the call of Hussein ibn Ali alayhi salam means to say, we are the people of knowledge. We are the people that will question people's judgments and practices, especially those oppressive ones. Salawat. The second, I've lost count number, third or fourth example I want to give you specifically of Imam Ali alayhi salam. One day, Imam Ali alayhi salam was sitting alone on the street or in a marketplace. And a companion comes to him, Abu al-Aswad. He comes to him and he says, Ya Ali, or Yabna Rasulillah, or any title that you wish to give. And he says, why are you sitting there alone thinking? Why are you reflecting, he says. He just looks at it, what are you thinking about? And Ali looks a bit down. Now, we often think that Imams had no feelings, they're always happy. No, they also felt down sometimes, they're also reflecting about things. So Imam al-Islam was a bit down. And the companion asked, why are you down? And he says, I notice in this city, in Kufa, that people do not know how to speak properly. They are getting their grammar wrong. They don't know the difference between a noun, ism, verb, fi'l, and a harf, preposition. Okay? So he said, you all know the difference, children? Should direct it to them. What's a noun? Good. Person and a place. Good. Person or named thing. Easy way to remember, named thing. Anything named is a noun. Book, tree, and proper noun like your name or my name. What's a verb? Good. Action, doing. And what's a preposition? Not actually where you were, but you're close. What's a preposition? Preposition is the word that doesn't have any meaning actually. It's just a connecting verb. Like to, okay? Or on. Okay, to or on. I am going to the supermarket. I am, or the ball is on the table. The meaning of on or to has no meaning in itself, by the way. On or to are just connecting words. So Imam Ali told him, Abu al-Aswad, that look, people don't understand the distinction between these three words. So he says, please can you get a paper, waraq, get a paper and write the following down. And he gave his companion the meanings of noun, verbs and prepositions. That to this day, we have what is known as Lughatul Arabiya, the Arabic language. The grammar of the language stemmed from Imam Ali alayhi salam. But not only that, the study of spirituality, of Quran, of law, of theology, these sciences came from Imam Ali alayhi salam. Even our understanding of leadership, we still have not tapped in today, comes from none other than Imam Ali alayhi salam. One final example I want to give. It has been long today for you, so I don't want to stretch it too much. Imam Ali alayhi salam is a living teacher to us. Yes, he has passed away, but his teachings are still available, and we should value them and value the concept of knowledge. In Suratul A'la, surah number 87 in the Quran, Suratul A'la, which we recite in the Eid prayer. If it wasn't for Imam Ali alayhi salam, maybe we would have recited this prayer incorrectly. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Sabbih isma rabbikal a'la alladhi khalaqa fasawwa walladhi qaddara fahada. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, praise or glory be to Allah's name, the name of your Lord. He created and proportioned, and He determined and guided. Now if you notice in these words, الَّذِي خَلَقَ فَسَوَّى وَالَّذِي قَدَّرَ فَهَدَى. الَّذِي خَلَقَ فَسَوَّى at the end comes with a shadda. فَسَوَّى, shadda, okay? But in the next verse it doesn't. Okay? الَّذِي خَلَقَ فَسَوَّى وَالَّذِي قَدَّرَ فَهَدَى. Fahada doesn't have shadda there. Why doesn't it have shadda? Because shadda means stress. Fahada is pronounced with takhfif. Takhfif means when you lighten the word. In Tafsir al-Safi by Fayd al-Kashani and Majm al-Bayan by Alama Tabrisi, it's a very beautiful point. The Shia scholars say that Imam al-Islam told the people, don't say fahadda. Just because fasawwa is there at the end doesn't mean you have to rhyme it and say fahadda. Because fahada means to guide. Allah guides everything. But if you say fahadda with a shadda, it means to break and destroy something. Look at that. So Imam Ali taught people, do not say that verse with ashadda, because you are changing the meaning. You are saying that Allah is determining something, then destroying something. It doesn't make sense. Lighten the word and say fahada, that he guides. If Imam al-Islam was this specific about Islam and the value of Islam in our lives, we owe it to him. We owe it to the memory of his son who was martyred on the plains of Karbala, Hussein, to say, today, O Hussein, your soul is alive. We are your Muslims who follow the Quran, who try to understand the Quran, and are not going to live comfortably in our life when there is oppression and injustice around the world. Tonight, that call was answered by the beautiful son of Hussein, Ali Akbar alayhi salam. On the day of Ashura, Hussein alayhi salam utters, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Can we dim the lights, please? Thank you. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Do we not remember that on the way to Karbala, Hussein is sleeping on his horse, and Ali Akbar notices that his father awakens from his sleep. Hussein immediately utters, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. From Allah we came, to him we shall return. Ali Akbar asks his father, Oh my beloved father, why did you say that? Hussein tells Ali Akbar that I heard a voice telling us that we are now destined towards our death. Ali Akbar tells his father, Oh my father, are we not on the path of righteousness? Isn't what we're doing right? Hussein says, yes, O son. Ali Akbar says, then it doesn't matter whether we are going towards death, maut, or whether death is coming to us. Did Hussein know that when the dragged body and the severed body of Ali Akbar would come back to him, he would cry out, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. This time not from his sleep, this time from the depth of his chest, because he could not take what would happen to his son. Ali Akbar on the day of Ashura looks at his father. Hussein looks at Ali Akbar and smiles and says, Oh my son, when we wish to remember Rasulullah, my grandfather, oh my beloved son Ali Akbar, we look at you because you give comfort to our hearts. Your smile, your hair, your eyes, your akhlaq resembles my grandfather. Oh Ali Akbar, do not ask me permission to fight, my son, because if you go into the battlefield, I will not be able to see the beloved face of my grandfather, he says. Hussein starts crying when Ali Akbar approaches his father now. Ali Akbar tells his father, Oh my father, I will say what you don't want me to say, because a son cannot allow a father to fight first. A son must defend the honor of the father. Ali Akbar says, Oh my father, please give me permission to defend your honor, please. Hussein says, Oh Ali Akbar, I find it difficult to give you permission. Remember, brothers and sisters, Ali Akbar was only between 18 to 27. That means he could have got married. That means he had his whole life in front of him. Who would not want to marry the handsome son of Hussein? Tell me. Ali Akbar tells the father again, Oh my father, oh Abu, please, give me permission to go into the battlefield. Hussein, with tears in his face, looks up at Ali Akbar. Now Hussein says, my son, if I give you permission, know that the enemies will strike arrows in your chest and you will call out, Al-Atash, Al-Atash, Al-Atash. Ali Akbar says, oh my father, it doesn't matter if I cry out Al-Atash, Al-Atash, because you will come to my aid. Finally, Hussein gives permission. Ali Akbar goes into the battlefield. Umar ibn Sa'd sees him and he says, what a bright face Ali Akbar has. I will strike a spear in Ali Akbar's chest that his father will feel it. Tell me which enemy has this much hate towards the Ahlul Bayt. Ali Akbar rides into the battlefield saying, I am the son of Hussein. I am the son of Hussein. And I will not allow Ibn Ziyad and Yazid to rule over this land. Ali Akbar kills many, but he cries out to his father, oh my father, this armor is weighing upon me, and the enemies are striking arrows into my chest. Ali Akbar now is falling from his horse. He cries out, oh my father, please come and quench me, for you said you would come to my aid. Hussein comes to Ali Akbar and he says, my son, I do not have any water to give you, my son. My beloved son, I only have this ring. Put your lips on this ring that your thirst will be quenched. Imagine this, that a father cannot give water to a son, brothers and sisters. Today you and I have water. Tell me, what position would we be if we cannot feed our children water? Ali Akbar kisses the ring. He says, my father, my lips now feel cool, but my throat is parched. I cannot breathe, my father. Hussein goes to Ali Akbar and he looks at Ali Akbar and he says, I cannot bear to see your arms cut. I cannot bear to see your beautiful hair and your beautiful cheeks sliced. Oh Ali Akbar, know this, though today on the plains of Karbala you are full of thirst, but Rasulullah is waiting to give you water. At that moment, Ali Akbar's eyes start to open. He sees Rasulullah and he says, my father, you are right. Rasulullah is waiting for me at Hawd al-Kawthar and he is giving me a cup of salsabil. I see Rasulullah. Hussein alayhi salam now is crying. His beard is drenched with tears. His armor is full of Ali Akbar's blood. But I tell you, there is still one figure to come out of the tent. Whichever way you look, you see Lady Zainab. She comes out of the tent and she is wailing and shouting, says, Hussein, Hussein, where is Ali Akbar? I don't see Ali Akbar standing, Hussein. Reports say that Zainab's cries were so loud that Hussein had to turn around to see the cries of Lady Zainab. Even Bibi Sakina heard the cries, that all of them stood up. Remember, Lady Zainab did not cry for and Muhammad. Now Lady Zainab comes out of the tent. Reports say that she was running. She was running to her son saying, my son Ali, my son Ali. Reports even say that with her abaya, she shrouded Ali Akbar, who was full of blood, and she fell on the body of Ali Akbar. She fell on the body, she could not contain herself. She then said, oh Allah, they have taken the person that resembled Rasulullah. Oh Allah, curse the enemies. Oh Allah, take their lives. Hussein says to Allah, witness that they have taken my son. Assalamu على علي أكبر. السلام على وجه رسول الله. السلام على حب أهل البيت. Peace be upon you, O Ali Akbar. Peace be upon you, the face of Rasulullah. Peace be upon you, the love of Ahlul Bayt. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Oh Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, please, may our children follow Ali Akbar. May our children resemble the akhlaq of Ali Akbar and Rasulullah. May we never deny anybody water. Oh Allah, please, let us follow in the footsteps of the beloved children of Hussein ibn Ali alayhi salam. ربنا لا تجعلنا مع قوم الظالمين. ماتم الحسين. يا حسين يا حسين يا حسين يا حسين